The police in Ethiopia say that more than 166 people, including 11 members of the security forces, died during violent demonstrations earlier this week. Protests erupted after gunmen killed the popular protest singer Hachalu Hundessa on Monday. Police in the Oromia region said more than 1,000 people had been arrested. I'm joined now by Zacharias Zelalem, who is an Ethiopian journalist. Zacharias, let's go back a bit. First of all, could you tell us about Hachalu Hundessa, the singer killed on Monday? Who was he? How important was he?
Okay, thank you for having me. So Hachalu Hundessa was a highly influential musician who was more than just a musician. He was deemed in the eyes of the Oromo as an icon of the Oromo resistance, in particular the Oromo protests that brought about the 2018 installation of Abiy Ahmed as Prime Minister of Ethiopia. So in the eyes of many, he's the one who penned the lyrics to the soundtrack of the Oromo revolution of sorts that ushered in the much heralded era of change in Ethiopia. And thus his death was always going to devastate millions across the country. Such is the impact that he had across the Oromo people in particular.
What do we know about the circumstances of his death? Do we know who killed him?
Well, due to the outages, there are internet outages across the country, and there has also been a subsequent clampdown on independent journalists. So it's impossible to independently assess what might have been the circumstances leading up to the tragic murder. All we know thus far is what Ethiopian state media has allowed to be published, and that is that several individuals have been arrested, and that there may be the involvement of a formerly banned group known as the Oromo Liberation Army. Of course, this is thus far impossible to ascertain. And within the coming weeks and months, when hopefully internet is restored, perhaps independent journalists will take a crack at what exactly might have transpired.
And we've reported that 166 people were killed in demonstrations following the singer's death. Do we know much more about the circumstances of those deaths?
Yes, 166 is the official death toll thus far. But as I said earlier, the lack of independent press reporting in the country and the internet outages have made it impossible to ascertain the circumstances that have led up to some of the deaths. However, what I can say for fact is that in some parts of Oromia, in some towns and cities in Oromia, there has been the reoccurring scourge of ethnic violence that has led to gangs of marauding youths targeting non-Oromo inhabitants and their businesses and singling them out for beatings and killings, tragically. Elsewhere in the country, there is also heavy presence of state security forces, which has contributed directly to the upscale in deaths, including, as we know, the death of Hachalu Hundessa's uncle earlier this week. So people have died from a variety of different causes, and without independent journalists being free to operate on the ground, it'll be impossible to properly assess exactly what happened thus far.
Zacharias Zelalem, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.